All right, we'll call the meeting to order. The meeting has been noticed to Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and Sparta Free Library. Mr. Russ, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to make the recommendation that we pull item E out of consent, as we do have one more graduate that's recommended for early graduation.
All right, thank you. And then I would like to pull policy 2240, controversial issues policy, out of consent agenda for discussion once we have the consent agenda vote. Are there any other changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll adopt the agenda with those changes.
Motion from Ms. Prestwood. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. McKenna. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. All right, if everybody would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Mr. Russ, if you could just present the SASD mission statement, please.
Yes, to educate all students academically, emotionally, and socially to inspire curiosity and resilience.
Thank you for that. All right, I think we have a couple public input. We'll call Marla Leverage up first. Discussion on policy 2240 and 2105. Ms. Leverage, 2 minutes, as you're aware, and Mr. Russ will keep track of that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. As all of you know, that I emailed you about this issue, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to attend the board workshop or the committee meeting on which it was discussed, because we had family plans and I was out of town. And so I'm addressing it now instead of during the workshop, but I'm asking if you could discuss that at another board policy workshop time, or at another time where it can be thoroughly looked at, because I gave you the information that I told you about. Teachers, I don't think, should be giving their opinions. I tried very hard as a teacher not to give my opinions on issues that could be one way or the other. And I just don't think that we need to be bringing all that up. There's other ways to talk about. Oh, okay. Okay, there's other ways to talk and teach them about critical thinking and analyzing sources and methods without it being a controversial topic. I just feel like, let's not even go there. Let's focus on academics instead of controversial issues. There's plenty of it in the real world around them. There's plenty of it at home, and let's let school be school, and give them a sense of community here instead of a back and forth kind of thing. Because this is the district policy that it's K-12. It is not just for high school. And so it could come up at any time. And I just would like to be able to talk to this in a further workshop instead of just 2 minutes. You know what I mean?
All right, thank you, Ms. Leverage.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Jim Leverage. Same 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the same opinion she does. And I think you ought to do maybe more, take the opportunity to work with the newspaper and get this kind of decision out to the public and let the general public understand. This is, I asked Sam if he had this policy in place, a previous policy, and he said no. And there's a lot of controversial issues in society today. And I'm not sure people want teachers influencing those decisions for their children. I know I wouldn't. I think that those are decisions that our parents and culture that those parents take their kids into, their opportunity. Like I was talking to my neighbor tonight, your president, do you want to just send your kids down to me without you and I talking about how you want me to present my information to the children? I just don't think it's appropriate. You could have 350 different ways of looking at things with your staff. So why do you even want to open that can of worms up? Why don't you just say, we'd rather not talk about that. We know it's going to happen at times, but our policy as a school is to focus on education and not controversy. And so I think it'd be a good idea if you not just had it at another meeting, but you sat down with the school or the reporter here and talked to them about your viewpoints and get it in the newspaper and get some local dialogue about it in the community before you make this is a big decision that impacts how you move the school district ahead. And I think it's also part of the reason that people are homeschooling their kids and taking them out of the public school. I never would have been in favor of that in the past when I was on the school board, but today I can see why people are doing it. So I encourage you to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leverage. All right, item 2, reports. 2A, mental health navigator report. Ms. Friend.
All right, I'm coming on down to introduce her. I'm pleased to introduce a very important member of our student services team, which is Kalyn Friend. She's going to share with you all a little bit about her role in the district and the why behind it. And I'm going to try to be her clicker.
Thank you for the introduction. As Lisa said, my name is Kalyn Friend. I'm here to tell you a little bit about what I do and how it's funded and everything else. I also have a lot of social anxiety about speaking, so I'm sorry. Okay, so who am I? My name is Kalyn Friend. I'm a UW Lacrosse 2016 graduate. I've been with the Sparta School District since 2019, and I am a stakeholder in the community as well because I have 3 students in our school district. So who does this position benefit? As all of us, it benefits us as well. Families, students, school staff, and then all the other stakeholders within our community. Those would be community providers, Monroe County, other mental health care professionals within the community. Next slide. Okay, so what is a mental health navigator? So the guidelines state that the district can use this position however they wish to, but in our district, we chose to use the funding to fund this position to be kind of a liaison for families to connect them with mental health services. We do have an integrated mental health program that allows providers to come see students within our school. So it focuses on that and also connecting them with providers in the community. We received our original award in 2019, and then we received a secondary award in 2021, which I applied for, and we're on the last 6 months of our grant in this award year. I put a little bit up there about the liaison part and just that I'm responsible for updating and following all grant guidelines and updating the reports and such. So this position looks different in each district. In our district, I've created a referral pathway for all school staff to use. I maintain a provider listing from the Winona area, Sparta area, all the way to Eau Claire. This encompasses a really large area because we have very few providers in our area. I maintain relationships with all those providers and then also maintain relationships with the provider networks that we carry MOUs with. I accept referrals and create personalized systems to connect families with services. Some families, this is a very detailed process. Some families don't need as much help as others, so it's very individualized. And then I also help maintain the provider schedules for when they're seeing students within our schools. I also collaborate with Monroe County. I'm on a couple different Monroe County meetings, part of our mental health coalition, to create this kind of wraparound service because in our district, we're focusing on the whole child. I have done the grant application for the last grant award, and I will be doing it again this year. I've also used surveys to gauge information from students and staff and families on what they know about mental health services, what they want to see happen in our district, and if they even know what services we have to offer. And then I've also competed in other grant competitions for continued community support to help with granting for extenuating circumstances for families that can't afford mental health services. Okay, so this is the why. So we all know that mental health issues are on the rise, especially post-COVID. It's created a lot more referrals coming through our doors and within the community. When we kind of live in a mental health desert, we don't have a lot of providers here. So I've included a little bit of data. This is from our 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey. This is ran every other year, every odd year in our school. I did put some data on there, and I'm not going to go through all of it because you guys have access to it, but we do see a rise post-COVID with this type of data. One that I really like to point out is that 55% of students surveyed in our middle school in 2021, that in the last 12 months, they had experienced significant problems due to anxiety or prolonged sadness. Significant problems can be related to like failure to go to school, not wanting to participate in sports that they would originally participate in for up to 2 weeks at a time. That's kind of like their parameters for that. I'm also included some data about sadness, i.e. depression, and then some self-harm, other types of data with, suicide risk and things like that. And then on the next slide, I've included data from our high school because the surveys are ran separately, but at the same time. And then we see kind of similar numbers with those. We have 49% of those students said they had experienced significant problems due to anxiety or prolonged sadness within the last 12 months. The numbers are pretty on par with each school. We don't see a huge discrepancy in one school having more than another, but it is done at 2 different age levels, and the wordage is a little bit different on the survey, so it's a little easier to understand at that middle age level. So this is the why, because we definitely see that we have a need, as in all school districts do at this time. And then kind of also the why is that our district has a focus on the whole child, the well-being of the whole child, instead of only academic success, which I think is very important. That's also why we have a focus on SEL. And then I also included some information from when I ran the grant in the last period compared to our 2019 data. So in 2019, 96.5% of staff and 48.3% of families surveyed expressed a need for a mental health navigator to assist families with accessing mental health services. That survey I repeated in April of 2021 for the updated grant. At that point, 89.2% of staff and 87.7% of families expressed a continued need. As you can see, the percentage of families went way up. I think that's because we did have an increase in need because of post-COVID. And then also I wanted to include that so far in this school year, we have processed 45 referrals from mental health services. And those referrals are all very different. Some of them are for students who want to be seen by a provider within the school. Some of those are students that are being seen by an outside provider or a psychiatrist within the clinic setting. Some of these families I've helped just get Medicaid, just get any type of insurance or any type of funding to pay for services. As I said, it's a very individualized process. Some families need a lot more assistance than others. So I've kind of gone out of the bonds of just mental health to try to make sure that we still meet that need. Any questions?
Questions or comments from board members?
Yes, I have a question.
Mr.
Thank you for
Hendricks.
the work that you do. It's extremely important. I'm wondering, first of all, I'm glad to hear that we still provide space for outside providers to work with students within the school setting. Can you give us a ballpark about how many students currently take advantage of that?
I can gauge the students within the school. I would say that we probably have about 56 students, I want to say,
Really?
that are utilizing in-house services. We do have MOUs with 3 different provider networks now, so we have a lot more providers to utilize to come into the schools.
Thank you.
Mr. McKenna.
Thank you. I think we would all acknowledge there's a line pre-COVID, post-COVID, where there definitely was a change under our rooftops. There's definitely a mental health need. So I really appreciate you writing the grant, taking the responsibility of doing these things. At the same time, I have some real questions about the why. Your whys that you posted, and more of a, where did those come from? And are those numbers real? When I got this draft slide last Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever Sam sent it, this really caught my attention. And there's a couple of things, and I reached out to him to get this youth behavioral survey so I could read through how the questions are worded and where these are coming from. And if we looked at, middle school, 55% significant problems, high school, 49% significant problems, that comes from question 28 on the survey, which reads, during the past 12 months, have you had a significant problem with feeling tense, scared, nervous, or like something bad was going to happen? Yes or no? I'd say yes. My wife had some medical issues. I was scared. I was nervous. I think of a 16-year-old girl who's afraid her boyfriend might break up with her, a 17-year-old kid who might not make varsity. I'm surprised the number isn't more than 55% or 49%. I mean, I think that's a question that everybody in this room could say, yeah, during the last year, I've experienced something that made me feel scared and nervous. But the one that really is the 9% suicide rate, attempted. It just didn't seem possible. But I went out and I looked at national numbers by the Mental Health Institute, and our 9% matches the national number. That's what they say as well. And that's gathered from surveys just like this that are taken nationally. That comes from question 32. During the past 12 months, how many times have you attempted suicide? 0, 1, 2 or 3, 4 or 5, or 6 or more. Think about who we're asking and how we're asking. Haha, 6 funny. Are we getting a real answer? There are 16.9 million high school students in the United States. If 9% of them attempted suicide, that'd be 1.5 million. Success rate in suicide nationally is between 10 and 15%. That'd be 150,000 suicides in the country a year. Last year, there were 13,089. Our national numbers are like 12% higher than reality. At SHS, 840 students. That would be 10 suicides a year, every year. We have 0 in the last decade. Either our kids are terrible at committing suicide, I really hope they are, or our data is flawed. If we're going to use this data, if we're going to post it as fact, let's make sure it is. I mean, one suicide is too many. When I look at 9%, that scares me for the entire school. And I don't pinpoint who really needs help. I think either we take this survey and we throw it in the trash and we realize the information isn't valid, or we use information to narrow down what we can really do in Sparta. How do we ask the question better? How do we get narrowed down to the kids that really need help? You can't possibly reach out to 75 kids every year. It just doesn't seem feasible because the number isn't real. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I just wanted to jump in here along with Kalyn to respond a little bit. That is very sobering when you break it down that way and concerning. One thing, well, a couple of things. One, the YRBS Youth Behavior Risk Survey is given to all school districts in Wisconsin every 2 years. So it's not just a Sparta thing. Now that in and of itself does not mean that it asks the questions in the right way. So I'm hearing what you're saying, Mr. McKenna. Also, we know that middle schoolers and high schoolers may or may not take surveys like this seriously. So we have to take our data seriously, but yet also knowing that, I don't want to say a grain of salt, but just knowing that we can never be exactly sure of how students are answering. Another hypothesis that I might pose too is that if we really do have this high of a number of students in need, I would really like to give kudos to our Sparta School District staff, especially student services, but all staff that were catching these kids, because we do not have any completed suicides in our district. And again, I fear even saying things, but I think that our people are doing a great job catching, knowing who the kids are, that there are some warning signs, and then acting on it, and in collaboration with families and mental health navigators and outside providers and things such as that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Mrs. Lopez, go ahead.
Kalyn, thank you so much for being here tonight. Had you not mentioned your social anxiety of speaking in public, I would not have known. You don't need to say that next time. You did a beautiful job. But when I saw the why, I also stopped, my heart dropped. And my concern was, this is an anonymous survey. Hopefully, these numbers are exaggerated by children who did not take it seriously. But in getting these numbers, being an anonymous survey, how can we identify who these kids are and actually get them the help that they need? And I don't know that you have an answer for that, but I think that's what we need to think about, because the survey is fun. I'm not going to say it's fine and well, but it is what it is. It's not necessarily helpful to us as a district for our local students, for our community. And the numbers are incredibly sobering. But thank you very much, because I do know that you do the work of mental health is very important.
Other questions or comments from board members? Mr. Wells, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a really personal subject of mine, because I mean, I've personally gone through loss, and I don't think, you know, there's with the vast amount of experiences we go through, there's no way to figure out the why. And that's what makes it really hard. I actually popped up in one of my newsletters where it was the bulwarks, the mystery of suicide. And it just goes on where, like, a quote, the difference between a person's experience and ours is vast. It makes processing suicides, like even the one that I personally went through, impossible. And yet we are called to try. And then the second section goes on how he's talking about his friend, and goes on about how, like, scrolling through his Facebook feed, similar to what I've done. And a lot of it just reminded him of the kind of dad would recount the precocious, silly, anodyne musings of kids on Facebook, where even March 22nd, his youngest daughter, he quoted her saying, "My worst enemies are mosquitoes and also leprechauns." And it just goes in kids, those beautiful, beloved little creatures with everything in front of them, every milestone, are now going into a journey through life without him. What type of pain could lead a man to accept that? Now, whether it's typical, as in people are going through a distraught, emotional, truck-like situation to them, or it's the actual depressive episode that causes them to take that, you know, there's no way to answer the why. But one life is way too much. It's too much to bear. It's too much to it's too much. It's not meant to be a statistic.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Other comments or questions from board members?
I just want to
Mr.
make,
Hendricks.
I just want to make a comment on behalf of the youth behavior survey. One of the things, and I understand the concern that some items seem inflated. I understand that. But the beauty of this survey is that it's been given for 30 years. I don't know. It's been given for a very long time. And so we can look at it and see trends. So locally, if we're dubious about the suicide attempt numbers, but they're twice as high as they were the previous year, it's a red flag. And similarly, if it halves over a period of time, then it's an indication that we're doing something right. And so I wouldn't get, as important as it is, I wouldn't get wrapped up in the individual number as much as I would in comparison and looking at trends to see what, how our efforts are either being successful or not. And there's a whole lot of other data in the survey, regards to drug use and just many other things that I think might merit a longer discussion simply on the survey itself in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Burns Gilbert, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for all you're doing. I went to a session at the conference this last week and really had some good ideas about some tools we could maybe bring back to the district that I'll share in later agenda item. But I also know that from working with college students, most of these numbers are probably actually underreported with the mental health stigma and the barriers that it takes for people to ask for help when they're supposed to figure it out on their own. So I just want to say thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Mr. Russ, go ahead.
I just want to say that this is one of the things that is invisible to our educators. However, the data is very clear that as time goes on, more and more young children, young teens, young adults, and us as more experienced adults start to experience, not feeling the best like they would like to have. So I can tell you, we are always looking to find ways to embed this social emotional learning into our curriculum. It could be a standalone program within grad groups, advisories, homeroom. But it's very important that we all take time to teach our kids these things and not assume that, nope, Todd's okay, Amy's okay, oh, Pat. Because the data will show eventually all of our kids need help. It's just like in math. Eventually, everyone will need tutoring in math. Yes, it's true. Everyone will need tutoring in math. And it's easy to see the math. It's more difficult to see the signs. And that's why educating our staff so well and understanding these are the signs. You know what, Mr. Hendricks, you just don't seem yourself today. How can I help? Just those little things, just like saying hello, can pick somebody up. But we are committed to educating the whole child, as our mission statement says, and continue to do this because one is too many. Mr. McKenna was right on, Ms. Lopez and Mr. Wells. One is way too many. And we'll work very hard to make sure we don't have that one.
Yeah, Kalyn, first and foremost, thank you so much for the time and effort that you've placed in this, Ms. Mullen, same with you. I think for me too, it's not so much about the number, it's the trend, right? And we know mental health issues have increased. The trend has over the last number of years here. And again, it's keeping it at zero. That's the number one focus and doing what we can, like Mr. Russ stated, to educate our professionals so that they can see those indicators. So again, thank you for your time and effort with that.
Thank you, guys.
Have a nice night. All right, item 2B, the WASB convention report. Mrs. Lopez, Mr. Wells, Mr. Burns Gilbert, and Mr. Russ. And our speaker, Ms. Hauser. That's right.
Well, who wants to start? Colin, you opened the door with saying that you went to a conference on that. So why don't you start? We'll get about 2 minutes. Well, don't want to say keep it to public input, but pretty close to public input.
Yeah.
So about 2 minutes of your highlights.
Perfect. I think number one overall highlight for me was just really getting a chance to dive into these topics, diving into the issues, but doing it too with, colleagues up here in ways that are healthy and brainstorming and making each other better. So that was definitely one outcome that's not going to be on an agenda there. But I think one session that stood out to me of the breakout sessions was Friday, which sometimes is surprising, but that was around I'm going through my 27 pages of notes here. But that one was called Empower You, was a vendor that helps support mental health in schools. And some of the vendor presentations are definitely looking to sell, right? As part of that's their role. But this one really stood out to me because it talked about some of the data, both regionally and then nationally, about how there's roughly 1,200 to 1 ratio for social workers supporting students. Other ratios like that really just kind of highlight that need for more mental health support. And so this was, they talked about the background, but that was one that essentially created accessible one-on-one personalized support for any student that would want and need that. The tier 2 level interventions, so not the students that need weekly, bi-weekly counseling sessions, or the tier 1 support was more, what can we do strategically in the classroom, right? To help give students tools. So kind of more in that middle ground. And so that was just eye-opening on how accessible it was, but also the outcomes that they saw. It was Elmwood School District was also presenting some of their results after using it for a few years. So attendance went up, behavior problems went down, grades went up, and teachers were seeing students that they hadn't seen in months. So I think that was one takeaway that I'll stop, because I could do 26 more pages of notes, but I think really just knowing that there's some innovative pieces, the sessions, right? We can't duplicate everything. What was that one Beloit Turner's doing here in Sparta, but we can take these lessons back and bring them to all the great people systems we have in place here. So with that, I yield.
So I also, my takeaways started with the unity, community, and opportunity was the theme. And then you start to see how it weaves. I went to a wonderful public records information. That was more of the technical aspect of my positions, but I really tried to hone in on the community side, the business side. How do we start to engage the community even more in regards to what the Sparta Area School District will look in the future? What does our facilities look like? What do our daily operations? What does this start to look at? And I was at a session with Oshkosh, who's just passed a very large referendum, but failing first before they started to really get some traction and learning. And their biggest takeaway was when they needed to put $100,000 to $200,000 into a roof, then they realized that school was built 30 years after the Civil War ended. Like, whoa, okay, they needed to do something at this time to make sure that they were being good stewards, but their comprehensive plan was very good about, bringing in businesses first, getting that support, going to the specific areas, making sure that we have military, Cataract, Town of Sparta, Leon, Angelo, Morrow Home, Rolling Hills, school district, parents of all ages, really to get that comprehensive look at what our district needs to look in the future. So, and then the trust one was very good too, our keynote on the first day. Mr. Hendricks and I heard him back in 2017 when he was there, but really reemphasized that trust costs time. Because if people don't trust, they won't be as productive. They may not cost them money, but you also cost them money in turnaround, staff retention, and pride in people's work. So excellent conference. And I apologize ahead of time if my brother was a little bit out of line. But the members there got to visit with my twin brother for a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. Mr. Wells, your 2 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the biggest takeaway I got was the breakout session on a community engagement method to combat misinformation. It was from the HSSD. I forget exactly what the school district, what the actual name of the district was, but they had a pretty good layout on how they combated misinformation, but also built a community support beyond all that. And kind of like going off what Sam said, where where you have one person from each community, a business leader, a mom, whatnot, and even your yay sayers and your naysayers. You really have to, what they ended up doing is that they ended up developing an hour and a half community like mini workshop where they would have breakfast. They talk about a book. I got the flyer and pamphlet. They talk about a couple chapters out of a specific book. They'd have someone like Kalea discuss finances, or someone discuss Herman happenings or whatnot, and they just go, or student services or whatever it may be. And so people learn about it and whatnot. And a lot of what it goes off of is practically our portrait of a Spartan and how that portrays into the community as well, right? Because I know, remember, one of the things that Sam mentioned was portrait of a Spartan isn't just our students, it's our staff, it's our community. And so how can we do that? And so a couple things that they came out, a couple of sort of so naysayers became super champions at promoting their school district. It is more likely to increase. They end up bringing the people that have attended those sessions. They have they've been more likely to become board members. They have been more likely to do things like the backpack program, and otherwise they just sent the others really either super supporters, and they end up helping keep this program thrive. So they sent out 75 invitations, about 40 people show up, and then each year they have a new set of 40 people.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Wells. Mrs. Lopez.
Thank you very much. So I first wanted to thank the community and the school district for supporting us, the Board of Education, and allowing us to participate in these conventions and different things that allow us to grow professionally and personally as well. I'll speak briefly on two of the breakout sessions that I spoke with, or that I sat in on rather. The first was a safety session that highlighted a reporting tool that could be used at Sparta Area School District in conjunction with our current program. The tool was called Speak Out, Speak Up Wisconsin, or SOSU. It can be used by any community member, student, or staff, and is currently free for Wisconsin school districts. It's set up to assist the reporter of a mental health crisis or some type of threat by enabling a chat feature so that the reporter can be supported as they walk through the process. And since it's available 24/7, 365, it's a great resource for our administrators in the district and the person or the situation of concern that's being reported, because it sets the ball rolling immediately. It's staffed by actual people who contact whoever needs to be contacted, so that a student who is struggling at 2 o'clock in the morning gets help at 2:05, as opposed to hours later when somebody happens to see that a message has been sent. The second was a seminar highlighting that although it isn't easy, it is possible to implement a district-wide compensation package that is not only equitable, but also allows for legally compliant ways to reward those employees who go above and beyond the expected level of performance. I thought that was extremely interesting. Overall, it was a wonderful experience, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to learn and grow. We met with a lot of people from different districts, got to meet Mr. Russ's twin brother. Very interesting to see them together. And lots of other administrators as well. So thank you so much for that opportunity. I really appreciated it.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lopez. And Ms. Hauser, I got to ask you, so can you just give us a brief synopsis of what you presented on? I mean, this is pretty awesome. So
Yeah,
go for it.
I presented, it was called Taking a Bite Out of Behavior Cost, and it was the financial impact of student behaviors on school districts. So I presented in collaboration with RAS, who is our workers' compensation carrier, and with an insurance agent. And so they talked about the background, and then I was kind of a case study of what I've seen as far as how student behaviors can impact the budget.
Well, thank you so much for the doing the presentation, and thank you to the board members that made it. Mr. Russ, thank you as well. Appreciate all that. Go ahead, Mr. Russ.
I'd like to hear Leah's takeaway too.
Oh,
if that's
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I also got to attend some sessions. So the first one I went to was by New Berlin School District, and they talked about how they utilize sponsorships within their district to raise money to help support continuing endeavors. So their sponsorships were not for operating monies, but rather to reinvest in co-curricular programming or things like that to improve what they can provide to students. Then I went to a session on cyber liability because we all know cyber risk is increasing at a rapid rate. And it was super informative as far as what precautions we need to take to continue as districts and as a whole to continue to have cyber insurance. So I correlate it with work comp. There are things that we do on the safety side there, like having a safety committee, having a strong return to work program and so on, so that we can continue to get insurance at reasonable rates. And as a K-12 population in whole, K-12 districts haven't really started doing a lot of these precautionary things. And so we're at risk of losing cyber insurance or paying astronomical fees for it unless we start to take action. So Chris Stearman and I have already been in the works, but we have had some questions and this helped answer a lot of those questions. So that was very positive. Then I listened to a session on wellness and how to use your wellness package to attract and retain employees. I went to a session on grow your own teachers. And the idea of this is similar to how we have DECA or FBLA or FCCLA, having a group of students who are interested in potentially having teaching as a profession, and how you garner that interest at the high school level to have future workforce. The statistics they shared were 60% of teachers work within 20 miles of where they went to high school. So if you think about that, there's some future potential there. And as we're seeing record rates of teachers leaving the profession, 30% of new teachers leave within 5 years. So the more we can attract our local students and show them that this is a great profession to get into, it would be to our benefit. And then I also attended the mental health session that Kalyn attended.
Busy bodies. That's great. All right. Well, again, thank you all that were able to attend the convention this year. And we really appreciate that time and effort you put into it. So. Mr. Russ, anything further on that? All right. Item 3, consent agenda. With the adjustments made, please review your slide there or the consent agenda items. And after a moment, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of policy 2240 and early graduation.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. McKenna. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Mr. Hendricks. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Consent agenda approved 7-0. Item E, discussion and possible action to approve Sparta High School's early graduates. Mr. Russ.
Yes, we did have one additional graduate that was added to in the administrative content for your approval, along with the other early graduates from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. And with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the Sparta High School early graduates as presented by Mr. Russ.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from,
I'll
I have
second.
a second from Mrs. Lopez. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then item D, discussion and possible action to approve SASD policy 2240 controversial issues. Anybody want to start the discussion, or Mr. Russ?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Dave to pull up the policy. I know Mr. and Mrs. Leverage spoke on controversial subjects. Currently, I cannot find a policy. We do have some of our classes. I can talk specifically to SHS based on my experience there. We do have some classes that get into some potential controversial subjects. The teachers in the past have been very proactive in saying, hey, what can I do here? I just, not necessarily even with your opinion. But the opinion does possibly come into it, specifically in some social studies classes, if it does come up at all. So this policy, we're looking at to have a policy to guide our teachers when these come up, to give them the vote of confidence or the stop sign that says, you know what, this isn't the way we're going to go. The out of the workshop and out of the committee of the whole, it was decided that teachers would be able to give their opinion. However, they weren't able to persuade a student one way or another. So they'd have to do it in a way. One of the things that we did not check is when the teacher could give that time. There is if you scroll down to the draft on the bottom of 2240, we did not set basically, and may only express a personal opinion after the student discussion has concluded. Well, it's probably that's at the very bottom if you scroll down on that. So we did not check that. So it is open-ended to say they are not to give their opinion for the purpose of persuading to his or her point of view or their point of view. And we left it at that. Didn't say when. Best practice, which when we talk about it with our teachers is that it's at the very end, it's at the very end, it's at the very end. But with some of these subjects, when is end? End of the course? Well, they may be juniors. You may have them again as seniors. So giving our teachers to say, hey, you cannot use this for the purpose of that. And I know that's open-ended because it's in the eye of the beholder, or you go to the reasonableness standard. What would a reasonable person think that you said? And we go from there. So that's kind of the background. Open to any more discussion or anything like that.
All right, at this time, we'll open it up to the other board members.
I would like to go.
Yeah, Ms. Presswood.
Okay, so controversial issues in the classroom. So we all know that they happen. We've seen it time and time again. We ourselves have controversial issues here. So my question is, curriculum is set beforehand, correct? Before the school year starts, we establish our curriculum lesson plans, correct?
The curriculum, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So we know if and when these issues come up in the classroom. It just depends on timing and when exactly. Teachers, when they have an issue with a piece of the curriculum, are encouraged to speak to somebody about the issues, correct?
If they feel very uncomfortable, if they have any questions, yes, because it's always better to be proactive. We talk about how do we communicate with the parents, how do we communicate and have a plan of action and, talk about it ahead of time, because they're just as, with recent controversy and that sort of thing, they're all aware of, of the topic. However, they're excited to talk about the topic in the appropriate way.
So my thought process, my question is, has anybody of a higher power, a principal, a superintendent, sat in on these classroom discussions to be sure that the teachers are waiting to the end to make their opinions, if they have opinions, known? Not that we have to micromanage, but is there somebody else in the room helping to facilitate this conversation to make sure it doesn't go into the realms that we've seen them go into? That is my question.
Yep. And I can tell you that we have instructional coaches that they come in if a teacher doesn't feel comfortable navigating this or wanting to make sure. That is probably the one they go to the most. As a former principal, I have the forward discussion, the proactive discussion, and then the how did it go discussion. Not necessarily, hey, was sitting in there at that time. If I would have been asked, it goes back to the micromanaging. How else can I support you? Do anything like that? Nope, I'm good. I got it. And we just follow up. But the instructional coaches have been used in the past. I don't want to speak for Mr. Ford, but as a former social studies teacher, a lot of people gravitate to him because there's typically not a lot of controversy in math.
So these issues that we have seen ourselves in our district, was there an instructional coach involved?
Not that I know of, no, but there might have been, but not to my knowledge.
So is it up to the teacher to reach out to the coach first, or is it up to the curriculum to say, hey, there's somebody available if you think, or do we just kind of preemptively have a coach, almost like a mentor assigned, especially to some of the newer teachers? I mean, we've seen it with seasoned teachers as well, but at what point, so this doesn't happen, do we as a district step in and make sure, not just asking, but proactively offering, hey, we have an instructional coach that's available. I'd like them just to sit to see how this conversation goes.
The proactive measure is the only proactive measure that I can recall of is in the beginning of the year, is when we say, hey, if you have a controversial issue that's coming up, A, make sure it's tied to the curriculum. B, let us know if you need support. And C, no particular order, communicate to the families and let them know that this is coming up and let them know how it's going to be presented. And a lot of the controversial subjects may not even be graded. It could be a discussion. I'm thinking of AP psychology off the top of my head. When you start to do those things and it's in the curriculum. And we work with the teachers to say, hey, this is what's coming up. It's a 15-minute discussion. Here's the resource. And then you move on, because it's a topic that may be required of the students in order to, on the AP exam, to be able to synthesize and be able to discuss. So, but day to day, week to week, we could maybe do a better job. At the convention, I did get some guides for teachers to follow. Hey, if on a controversial subject and still looking for more, to give our teachers more resources to navigate these, or just give them, if you don't feel comfortable navigating them, it's part of the curriculum, but this is what you need to do to navigate it.
I'm glad you mentioned AP Psych, not that that's it, but my senior is taking all AP classes, and there will be times he comes home and he's like, Mom, I can't believe the teacher said this. So I question whether or not we have the proper people in place to make sure that these conversations are not happening. And, you know, teachers reflect a lot on their students, and the students put that inside and they carry it with them. And now my student who's 17 and is going to go to college is like, oh, this teacher said this, like it's going to stick with them, because it's not the only time we've had that conversation. It's come up again numerous times. So that's just that's all I want to go with that. So what steps can we take as a district, one, to make sure that these conversations are not happening, and then the fact that we're talking about mental health and suicide and things like that. Like, I feel like this whole meeting tonight plays a part into the grand scheme of things. And what are we doing as a district to, one, not only CYA ourselves, but our children and our employees and our community, which is ultimately what we're out to do.
And I think when those come up, when we do have students that say, hey, Mom, Dad, Grandma and Grandpa, this is what this teacher said, I would encourage anyone to clear up that and say, hey, is this what you meant? Is this true? Sometimes there's some misunderstanding. But also going back to the convention, the trust. You know, communication is one thing, but that's reestablish that trust. And that's that proactive communication that we can really do it. But our biggest defense is the kids, whether it's finding, drugs or weapons or possible fights or cyberbullying, whatever it might be, the kids are our best weapon to do that, to prevent those things. So when we do hear those things, we need to follow up to do that. So, but we don't have someone in there. We just don't have the resources. And I think by not expressing, and that's perfectly fine, we just need to follow either way, but it is very difficult to not express your opinion in something at any time.
Mr. Russ, is there any reason to expedite this policy? I mean, through that, we would need to have an approval tonight where we would continue conversation this evening.
Considering we don't have a policy right now, we would just continue with what we had. But there's no reason to expedite, in my opinion, just to give our teachers some guidance because we do have second semester coming. And maybe this discussion is good enough for our discussion anyway, but the biggest thing is it's tied to the curriculum. And I know our teachers don't want our teachers to shy away because we need to get our kids ready for future choices that they're going to have to make. And as a former educator, I think you can do it in a way that does not with the purpose of persuading one way or another. That's my opinion. I think our teachers have that latitude, that professionalism. Sometimes do they slip? And that's when administration comes in and says, okay, what do we need to do? But there's no reason to answer your question. No, we don't need to expedite it if the board doesn't want to. And we can go push it back to the workshop, whatever you think is best.
Well, and for me, with reading the room, community members here, just given the scenario, I guess I would feel comfortable and maybe prefer tabling this at the moment. That way we can have discussion for sake of full transparency with the community, our district, just to table this for now so we can take it back to workshop and then to committee of the whole where we can have a larger discussion. With that, I would strongly encourage any administration or members of cabinet to either speak with Mr. Russ or reach out, let us know your opinion on item 2240 along with the public. So just opinions because we want to make sure we're making the right decision for the district.
So
Mr. Russ.
is that for the committee of the whole next or the workshop?
What do you guys think? I mean, I don't want to push it out too far. I'm trying to, what's the date of
The workshop is February 1st and the
Yeah.
committee of the whole would be February 13th.
Yeah, so let's push it to the workshop and then have further discussion as a committee at the committee of the whole.
So to be approved then by the next full board then, right? Is that what you're
Potentially.
thinking?
Potentially, yeah. Is everybody okay with that, in favor of that? Okay. All right, policy 2240 controversial issues will be tabled until the policy workshop and then discussed at the committee of the whole. Thank you for that. All right, so item 4, business 4A, discussion and possible action to approve the 2022-2023 budget revisions. Ms. Hauser.
So I presented budget revisions at the committee meeting. I don't believe there were any questions or any follow-up. I can answer any questions if you have them.
Questions or comments on item 4A, 2022-2023 budget revisions? Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
No, I was just going to say there were no changes to those. Right, thank you.
Perfect. All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2022-2023 budget revisions as presented.
I will make that motion.
I
please.
have a motion from Mrs. Lopez. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Mr. Wells. Should I do roll call on that one? Yeah, let's go ahead and do roll call.
Ms. Prestwood?
Yeah.
Mr. McKenna?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert?
Yes.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes,
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Discussion and possible action to approve Article 156. Ms. Hauser.
So you have the revised wording. In essence, what we're looking to accomplish here is we've had a $10,000 threshold to receive 3 quotes for many years. And with inflation and just the cost of things, it is very hard to find anything in the technology world or the facilities world that is under $10,000. And so we're not only spending our time getting a lot of quotes, but what we're doing is we're taxing out, especially our local business owners, in the time that they take to prepare a quote without, a good level of assurance that they would kind of get the work. And there's a lot of time that goes into giving a quote. And so I believe that $20,000, and in working with Justin and Lowell previous to him and with Chris, that would be a more appropriate threshold. So that really, we're making sure that when we do get quotes, we're getting the most competitive possible because those vendors feel that, they have that opportunity. So we're requesting the threshold be raised to 20,000. That's not to say I wouldn't ask for additional quotes at the 10,000 mark, but it gives me that latitude to determine if it's appropriate.
Hauser, any questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, I would entertain to approve Article 156 as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Burns Gilbert. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Hendricks. Roll call.
Ms. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Ms. Prestwood.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 4C, open enrollment in regular ed and special ed cases for the 2023-2024 school year. Ms. Mullen.
Right, thank you. So every January is the month where all school districts in Wisconsin are required to present the openings of space for open enrollment for the following school year. So the first thing we did was determine regular education openings and determine that we do have openings in all of our buildings for regular education, with the two exceptions of our Innovations STEM Academy, because they have a waiting list, and also sales because they also have a waiting list. So every other building is open for open enrollment. With special education, we have a bit more of a procedure to go through to make those determinations. So after determining the regular ed spaces, we look at the caseloads of each of the buildings. Well, I should say each of the buildings, yes, but then breaking it down by our early childhood, our elementary, our middle school, and our high school. We look at ratios of how many special education teachers do we have compared to the number of students on the caseloads, and then have determined appropriate ratio to meet the needs the best. And then if there are, if the ratio is under that cut, then we're able to allow open spaces. So in this case, all of the ratios were at or above what we would recommend. So that means there are no open spaces for special education. Any questions?
Questions or comments from board members?
I have a question. Could you please tell us what is the ratio of a special education aide or teacher or whatever to student?
Sure, good question. Ratios, there is no one recommended ratio set by the state. So it's basically looking at numbers of students, but also workload, and we weight students in certain ways. So students with higher needs are weighted heavier than students with lesser special education needs. So it does get quite complicated, but kind of the ratio that we go by as a guide is in elementary 1 to 12. So 1 teacher to 12 students on a caseload, and then middle and high school, it's 1 to 15.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Further questions or comments from board members? Mr. McKenna, go ahead.
We're seeing no new open enrolled special ed. If someone was already existing special ed who had enrolled this year, they could continue, correct?
Yes.
And one thing, these are open enrollment. So if a student comes into our district and lives in our district, regardless of a disability or not, we have to educate them. We're talking about a student from out of our district that has a student with a special needs, in any special need, our recommendation would be to close that, and that's the action which we're asking for tonight. As Ms. Mullen said, this is a need for every January, because if the board doesn't act, everything's open.
Further questions or comments from board members? All right, so the action you require then, I just want to make sure that's clear. Go ahead, Mr. Russ.
Yep, the action we'd be recommending to set the open enrollment numbers as presented, which would include, sorry, I'm scrolling down, which would be basically a motion for the regular education spaces at Sparta High School, Southside, Herman, Meadowview, Sparta Montessori, and High Point. And then open enrollment is closed to all special education programs, Innovation STEM Academy for all, and sales on that. So as presented would work.
I'll make the motion of what he said.
Thank you for saying that because I wasn't going to repeat that. All right, a motion from Mr. McKenna. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a, who was that?
Right there.
All right, I have a second for Mr. Burns Gilbert. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 7-0. Item D, discussion and possible action to approve grants and donations. Mr. Russ.
All right, let me pull this up. So for your approval tonight, the Mayo Foundation for Medical Education Research has donated $2,500 total for the weekend backpack program and the integrated mental health program contribution, and a very generous donation to the Herman Parent Group for $4,000 for field trip. And also the Karen development for the high school holiday gifts for SHS students for the amount of about $1,200 for your approval, please.
First and foremost, thanks to all of those donors. It's greatly appreciated within the district. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve those grants and donations as presented.
I will make that motion.
I
to
have a
approve the
motion
grants and donations.
From Mrs. Lopez. Thank you. Do I have a second? A second from Mr. Hendricks. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Russ with the further grants and donations.
Yes, just for information only, the following individuals and organizations have donated. I'm very generous. Mark Kelly, Wendy Swenson, Sparta Public Education Foundation, Monroe County Retired Educators, Christine Phillips, United Methodist Women, Marcia Smith, Riverside Produce, Sparta Lions Club, James and Marie Harry, Emily Axelson, and John and Diane Noonan for their generous donations to our district, which are less than $1,000, but very valuable.
And again, thank you to all the donors from the Board of Education and from our entire district. Greatly appreciated. Item 4E, announcements and information, Mr. Russ.
All right, as we referenced earlier, February 1st, we have our policy workshop. That's going to start at 8 a.m. In the Maplewood Conference Room. Then followed up on the 13th with the Committee of the Whole and the full board on the 27th. And then we go into the March dates on the 13th and the 27th. I want to give a quick update on the auditorium. We did have the vendor meet with and tour the facility last week. And we're still trying to get information, but our goal is by the Committee of the Whole meeting to have a formal report more of about where we're at and that sort of thing. So, but moving forward with that. Met with custodial and maintenance, buildings and grounds today to discuss graduation with the turf. It's going to make a little bit. We're trying to get the same type of ceremony, but we're going to have to be creative in what we do. For instance, you can't have any chairs that have 4 legs on them. And as we usually have that, so we're looking at, how do we level out those, the weight, do we have bleachers or benches? Do we have the cafeteria chairs? We use a lot of plywood to get the stage out there. So we're looking to make sure that we can have that and make that happen there at Memorial Field. In our classrooms, kids are still working hard. Teachers are working very hard to get the most out of their students. Middle school co-curriculars have started up for the, I guess, the January, because they have 2. They have a winter in November and December, and then January and February. We'll have solo ensemble coming up, and they'll get ready for their final concerts of the season. Show choir is running strong. Our co-curriculars at the high school are winding down. We got another month or so. And second semester at SHS starts tomorrow, along with High Point as well. So, and we're about halfway through the year. The 100th day ceremony will be coming very soon at the elementaries as well. So a lot of good excitement, and I can't thank our parents and our stakeholders enough for the proactive communication that we're having. To make sure that we're all on the same page, to understand each other's perspectives and say, yep, this is how can we get better? And we're having a lot of those conversations, which is going a long way.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Russ. Item 4F, discussion and possible action to move to executive session for administration, evaluations, and contracts per Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and for the board to move to executive session under Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, to deliberate and negotiate the purchase of public property or the investment of public funds, or to conduct public business with competitive or bidding implications which require a closed session. Ooh. I will entertain a motion. Please.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Mr. McKenna. Do I have a second?
I can second.
A second from Mr. Burns Gilbert. Roll call.
Mr. Schulte,
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez,
Yes.
Ms. Prestwood,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Motion carries 7-0. We are now in closed session.